All right, guys, before we start cooking, we always want to make sure that we wash our hands. So I'm going to wash my hands now. Remember, you get your hands wet. Hot water, it's a little hot. Okay, then get soap. Rinse. Okay, and then dry your hands. I have already pre-washed our apple, so it has been washed with just hot water, but not soap, because remember, we don't want to use soap or detergent when we wash our produce. So I will meet you over in the prep area. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create what's called mise en place. This isn't exactly necessary, but all it means is that you're making sure that you have everything in place before you begin to cook. So it's a really great way to just make sure that you have everything, that you're not going to leave anything out. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to measure is our flour. Okay, so the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of flour. So I'm going to take my flour canister. I'm going to take my 1 tablespoon measuring spoon. I'm going to take a spoon, and then I'm going to use the back part of the knife to level it off. When we measure flour, we want to scoop it in until it is heaping or overflowing without packing. And then we want to level it off. Okay, and then I can put it into my bowl that I have ready to go. Okay, I'm gonna repeat that process until I have measured out 3 tablespoons. One more to go. So now I have measured my flour. The next item that I need to measure out is my brown sugar. So we measure out brown sugar in a slightly different way. Okay, so I'm gonna take a new clean 1 tablespoon measuring spoon, and I need to measure out 2 tablespoons of packed brown sugar. Okay, so I'm going to pack this tightly into my measuring spoon. Okay, and then just kind of like level it with the back of that spoon. You need a little bit more. Okay, and then that goes into my next cup. I want it to hold its shape just like this. Okay, so I need 1 more of these. To pack it. And I have my brown sugar. The next thing that I am going to measure are my rolled oats. Okay, and if we were doing this at school, we would have separate measuring utensils that are washed between each one, but since I am the only one eating these oats, I am just going to use my measuring spoon that I used for my flour. For the oats, you can just kind of shake to level. We need 2 scoops, 2 tablespoons of our oats. Okay, and then last but not least is our cinnamon. Our recipe calls for 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay, we don't have a 1/8 teaspoon in a standard set of measuring spoons, so we need to measure out half of a 1/4 because that is 1/8. Okay, so it's going to be about half of our 1/4, so we need a little bit more. Okay, a little bit of cinnamon goes a long way. Sorry, we are displeased. Okay, so I will be back in just a minute. I'm going to clean some of this stuff up, and then we are going to tackle our apple. Okay, now we are going to be getting our apple prepped and ready. For this recipe, we want a peeled apple. Okay, so we are going to carefully peel our apple with a peeler. Okay, remember, don't get a false sense of security with a peeler, okay, because they are very sharp. Okay, once you are done peeling the apple apple peel is really nutritious. There's a lot of fiber in the apple peel, so I usually like to snack on the apple peel as my apple crisp is in the oven. Speaking of the oven, you want to make sure that you are preheating your oven to 350 degrees. Okay, once I have my apple peeled and ready to go, okay, you could use an apple core slicer, so one of those like circular things that has the spokes coming out and the circle in the middle, or you can use your chef's knife. Just remember to keep your fingers back, okay? I like to cut it in half first because then it gives me a flat surface to rest it on. You never want to cut on a curved surface like this because it rocks around too much. Okay, so I'm just going to slice like so. Okay, then I'm going to turn it. I'm going to angle it so I can try to cut the core out. Do the same on this apple. Or that apple half, I guess it's the same apple. Okay, and I can set those aside to throw away later. Okay, so now I just want to slice my apple up. Okay, missed some of that core there, so I'm going to get it when it's in slightly more manageable pieces. Okay, notice how I'm curling my fingers over. We call this almost like a bear claw hold. So you can make sure that you're not going to get your fingertips. Okay, that one's pretty good. Okay, you can slice your apples as thin or as thick as you would like. I am going to put the slices in a bowl so I can slice them one at a time. Then we're going to put them into this baking dish. And I noticed that my cutting board was moving around a little bit, so I'm going to wet a paper towel. Okay, and if you use a damp paper towel and you put it under your cutting board, it will kind of anchor it in place a little bit more, and it'll make it a little bit safer for you. Okay, so again, I'm just going to slice my apples. Being very careful of the sharp knife. Couple more pieces to go. Oh, and I guess there's one more thing that we are going to need to measure that I forgot about. We need to measure out our margarine. So I'll have to get that for you in the next step. So just put all of your apple pieces into your baking dish. Okay, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to make the topping. Okay, I have washed our knife and I have washed our cutting board so that we can measure out our margarine. Okay, so if you notice, the margarine has the measurements printed on the packaging. Okay, so that's how we measure out margarine, is by using the markings on the packaging. So I need 2 tablespoons. Okay, so that is what I need for my topping. I'm gonna move these out of the way. Okay, so now, okay, the directions say to mix the brown sugar, flour, oat cereal, cinnamon, and margarine in the bowl. So we can, you know, just check things off as we go. So the brown sugar, the flour, the oat cereal, the cinnamon, and our margarine. And I'm actually going to use a fork to kind of mix this together. Okay. Okay, I'm going to use a second fork to kind of break up the pieces. It's not going to mix together entirely, kind of like cookie batter or cookie dough. It's going to be a little bit crumbly, and that's okay. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of press into the margarine with my fork. And then continually scrape it away. Okay, you can also, you know, try to use both forks at the same time. Okay, if that's a little bit easier, okay, just kind of mixing in the other toppings. I'm gonna go back to one fork, I think. But you sort of just want to smash the margarine into all of your dry ingredients. Until they start to resemble crumbles. So you kind of want them to be about pea-sized crumbles. crumbles, so we're getting closer. Okay, that looks about how we want it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just going to take my apples. I'm going to kind of sprinkle this over the top. Okay, so as that butter melts and as the apples kind of let off some of their juices, turn into a nice, almost like a cookie topping to our apple crisp. Okay, so it should look something similar to this, and I will show you what it looks like after it comes out of the oven. Okay, folks, this is what it will look like after 20 minutes in the oven at 350 degrees. I'm not sure I mentioned that in the previous videos. So, highly recommend eating with vanilla ice cream, but it's also great on its own. So it's a lovely fall treat. If you make this recipe, I hope you enjoy. You guys, I almost forgot the most important step, which is, of course, to clean up after yourself. Dishes done, okay? Countertops cleaned off. Now I get to enjoy my apple crisp.